Hazel Krebs. I'm
Hello.
so excited to have you on today's show, Casually Profound podcast, on the Size Eyes podcast. And this is a long time coming, but I just want to introduce Hazel to everyone, to the Size Eyes audience here. We met we met a few months ago at an Overland Park, I think Tanner's, at a
Yes.
networking event there.
Yes.
Met you, met Patricia, Tuckness. We just had I was on my way out actually when we met.
Right.
And we chatted for a little bit, shared our stories, and I'm grateful that I stayed a few minutes longer. And it's been awesome getting to know you so far, and many more years to come. But I just want to have you on, and just want to say thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Sai. It's been a pleasure so far getting to know you, and even just this experience. But I was thinking about how we met, and because it was a networking group that I had been in for a little bit, but I had already noticed the tendencies of the group, and then when you came in, it broke the tendencies, and I feel like a lot like me in the group as well. The group is, traditional businesses, a lot of not quite like true startups, more of like franchise type groups. And so when I found someone who was more niche like me, more, making our own path, like I was like, I have to meet Sai, I have to like connect. And then we had coffee like a week or two afterwards. So that was fun. And then we connected over the writing, because we did the writers conference.
Yeah.
A month or two after we met. So.
Yeah. So that's so that writers conference was amazing. Obviously coffee, and then obviously the freelance exchange that I saw you at recently as well.
Yes.
And then we'll get into it too. But I saw the book being published on your socials after I followed you. I'm like, I got to read this. But yeah, we'll definitely get into that more. But I kind of want to start off with anything that we're grateful for. Anything that comes to mind that you feel grateful for right now?
I can go through a lot of things I'm grateful for. I truly just wake up grateful for who I am, but I'll do something a little more nuanced. But I'm grateful for the networking. The fact that we met through a group, just happened to be at the same place, the same time, connecting, and networking works. I know it's a lot of work for people. I love meeting people, but I'm just grateful for all the people I meet, including you, and I'm just grateful that there's these places out there for us to get together.
Yeah, love that. That's something I've been exploring more in Kansas City now, having moved back. Right now, was it 8 months in, 7-8 months in. This is the coolest and newest experience that I've had moving back to Kansas City, of any city that I've moved to so far, and networking has been a big aspect of that. Yeah, something I've been grateful for is, well, you stole mine of networking, so.
Sorry. We should have exchanged notes before.
No, this is perfect. I love, like the outdoors, I would say, because I think through this winter time, I didn't really spend as much time outdoors, and I loved, when I was in Charlotte, I loved spending time outdoors, going to the parks like this, or maybe driving an hour or two to get a little bit further away from the city and just be out in nature, or do a hike, something. But through the winter season here in Kansas City, I didn't do that as much. I guess I could use an excuse as it was cold and snowy and stuff.
It was cold and snowy.
But now it's I think earlier this week, and going forward, spring's finally here. So I'm ready to explore more of the city, more the natural aspects of it. Because I think one tendency is we can, people think of Kansas as pretty flat, and sure it is. And there's also a lot of beauty, within 10-15 minutes of wherever we are for the most part. So I want to challenge myself, and I'm also grateful for being able to spend time outdoors and record it like we are right now today.
But there we go. So networking and outdoors, and we're hitting both of them.
Exactly, love it. Well, I want to do a quick visualization exercise just to kind of get us into even more relaxed mindset. So, and listeners, you can follow along with us too, as long as you're not driving or anything. Close our eyes and start relaxing, deepening our breath. Taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Starting to feel relaxed from the top of your head, working down the face, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, torso, hips, legs, feet and toes, all the body feeling fully relaxed. And from this space, let's imagine at the end of this conversation, feeling like we gained so much energy, shared so much energy, shared so many ideas, so many things for us to think about, for anyone else listening to this to think about and act on in their life. And feel like this was time and energy much well spent. And after another moment, we'll come back to the present moment and come back to Antioch Park here in beautiful Kansas City, Kansas, Overland Park area.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. Well, first question I want to ask Hazel is, who do others think Hazel Krebs is?
Great questions. So I've been called very positive. I do a lot of sparkles, and so people say I have a sparkling personality. I hope people are saying that I love life. Like, I love this, who I am. And I hope what people do understand about me is who I am. Like, that there's no confusion about where I stand on things. People, I get like that I'm nice, that I'm sweet, that I'm authentic, some people, a friend of mine calls me disgustingly positive, and he says that with the best intentions. So, yeah, that's who it is. I mean, of course, you can see that I'm a trans woman, and I transitioned later in life. I mean, many people think I'm younger than I actually am, so that's something. But
Yeah.
I'm a mom, I'm an advocate, an author, and of course, just like who I am as a personality is just this positive energy, and people smile when they see me, and that makes me so happy.
I know I do. Yeah, talk to me more about the disgustingly positive, or how did you get to that state, right? Because I think that's a state of, and it's very authentic. It's not like fake in any regards, right? So how did you kind of get to that the state of feeling positive, like authentically positive?
So the conversation that this came out with this friend of mine, he's like, we talk about politics a lot, and he gets into like a negative, name calling type of thing. And I ask him, what's the point? Like, what's the point of calling someone a name? It's not going to change their mind. It's not going to do really anything other than add negativity in the world. So where I come from, it's like, well, what's the end goal? What's the purpose of the energy that I put out there? And if the energy is negative, the result is negative, and that's not what I want. So, yeah, this disgustingly positive thing is like, well, I'll just be positive. And I know people don't like who I am because of who I am. I know that that's like a fact that some people don't think I exist as Hazel. Some people think there's something wrong with me. But if I'm just like happy, like they can't argue with what I'm putting out in the world. You know, if I start arguing with people and calling people names, they can latch onto that. If I'm positive, like what are they going to do? Like, no, you're not happy. They can't argue with my happiness. So that's what I try to portray. And again, what's the end result? What's the purpose of being negative? Like, we have enough negativity in this world. Like, I don't want to add to it. I want to just like be positive, be a light, be shining. Yeah. I mean, so many people I get messages all the time, just like, oh, your post made me smile, and I really needed it then. And I don't even hear from them, you know, maybe for a few weeks. That's what I want, like the positive energy in this world, as opposed to adding to the abundant negative energy.
Love that. So, do you see there being a purpose to be happy? Because like you're saying, there's no reason to be negative. Mm-hmm. Do you see a reason to be happy? I mean, that seems like an obvious question. Mm-hmm. But I'll ask it anyways. Like, do you see do we need a reason to be happy? Right.
Do we need I mean, I'm happy just waking up. So like, is there a reason? I mean, just being alive is a day. There is a reason to be happy for me. But I think like surrounding yourself with people, ideas, energy that is good, like is important, because we have something, right? You know, I'm believing in like manifesting, and what we put out is what we get back. Well, if we're putting out nothing, we get nothing. Like, I don't think that that's actually true. So there is a purpose to being happy, and what I call is like at least. It's an at least, and if something bad happens, I could always say, at least it wasn't worse. At least it wasn't this. Like, oh, I'm just for some reason losing my job, even though I'm self-employed. that was the first thing I thought of. But it's like, well, at least I have my health. At least I have happiness in my life. At least I have my kids or something. So that even though there's negative, there's always that positive. And I don't know. I don't know what I would do without it. I mean, so much of my life before was negative. And honestly, there's a part of me that's like, I just need to be really, really positive, because it was an absence of it for nearly 4 decades.
Yeah, so I think perfect time to plug the book here about that you wrote and published. Well, wrote for how long? For a couple
About
years?
A year.
Year?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then published this January.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd love to hear more about the process of writing the book, and how it became to be as it's sitting here right now.
Right, so it's right here. Always have to have it on me. I'm a marketer at heart. Yes. But so when I started the book, it was in August 2022. So the process of actual writing was a year, but in 2022, I was a little dissatisfied with the work that I was doing, with a 9-to-5 at a bank. And I was like, what is it? Like, I need something. I want something that's me, tangible, I could put out in this world. And I happened to listen to a book, You Are a Badass, by Jen Sincero. Changed my life. And the book was like empowering to do my thing. And so I sat down. It was at a Panera Bread right next to my apartment. That said, I'm like, what is it? What can I do? And I came down to like, I love who I am. And sadly, it's not as like common as I want it to be. And then it just hit me that that's my goal. So I started writing a blog, but I knew from the beginning I was going to write a book about how I came to be this person. So many people know me now. Have never known me before I transitioned, before I changed my name. So I was like, I am this person. I have this positive like persona. I'm like disgustingly positive, but I haven't been that way. And that was the idea, to write this book of like how I became who I am. And it's, I say, it's the discovering it's my story of discovering a life I'm enthusiastic to live. And I mean, Enthusiastically Me was the first 2 words that I wrote. Like, I mean, the title was written before I even had any concept of anything else, because I just was like, this is who I am. This is what I have to sell. This is my legacy.
Yeah. Is there anything else with like the word enthusiastic that resonates with you? I guess, like, why that word?
Yeah, and I wish I could like have, you know, I would say a better answer. I mean, as a writer, you know, you've read my book. Like, I'm very like word conscious. Like, I'm very deliberate with the words that I use. And when I was writing my book, like actually actively writing it, I would always have a tab open for Merriam. Was the thesaurus on Merriam's website was my favorite, because you could start getting into rabbit holes of words that mean. And so I just was like looking for a perfect word. And it's almost like enthusiastic. It almost sounds like a fake word, right? Like it's a word that's, yes, it's real, you've heard it, but it's like over the top. Most people don't use it. And so just like Enthusiastically Me is this just idea that I'm really excited about being me, you know, and how many people are enthusiastic about anything, you know, and it's like, I'm enthusiastic about myself. You know, I started a company and it's called Enthusiastically You. It's the website is enthusiastically-you.com. It was just this whole idea, and I wanted it to be unique. And that's another thing, enthusiastic. I didn't realize this. I didn't think about it ahead of time, but enthusiastic is a hard word to spell. And so I'm like, just search for my name. My name's easy to spell, but although some people still mess it up. But enthusiastic, it just has this embodiment of excitement, but like a full 100% excitement as opposed to excitement about something. Like, I'm just enthusiastic about who I am. And I'm working on a concept of enthusiastic authenticity as sort of the idea for my next book. Again, that enthusiastic is being sort of my signature, right? Enthusiastically Me, Enthusiastically You. My third book, if I write it or when I write it, will be Enthusiastically Hazel. It'll like pick up when this book ends. It's just so meaningful for me.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also the like such a long word with like and like 2-letter word after that. I love the dichotomy. It's like it's I guess from a linguistic standpoint, it's also like it catches your attention too.
And I can go into those. Like, I love nerding out about words, how they sound, how they like, you know. And so
well, so one thing that we were talking about before was feeling enthusiastically yourself is not, you know, it wasn't necessarily an experience that you've had throughout your entire life. How, I guess, and we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, right? I guess, how does that play a role? Like, imposter syndrome with like enthusiastically feeling like yourself. How does that play a role there?
And imposter syndrome, you know, I did battle that often as I was transitioning. You know, when people started to know me as Hazel, and I was going in with different groups. Now, who I was historically is like who I am, right? Like, I'm more or less the structure of who I am, like, is the same. But I'm more like, I embody who I am much more like thoroughly. And so imposter syndrome, like previously, was this anxiety that happened when I was just like feminine and it didn't fit the shell that people knew me. And it was a lot of anxiety that I took to my, like, into my core and caused stress and depression. And I coped through unhealthy, you know, mostly alcohol. And it was this, like, wanting to be a certain way, but feeling like the world is seeing me in a way that shouldn't fit, you know? And so that was what I kind of lived with. But then once I transitioned, I was worried that people were seeing me as, I say, like my old self wearing a dress. Like, I love wearing dresses. I love being feminine. My hair is pink and blue. But I was always worried that people were seeing me as just like a sheep's and wool clothing, or whatever, the wolf in sheep's clothing, whatever it is, the expression. But just that I wasn't, you know, truly Hazel. And it's gone away to a certain extent. A lot of like what I do with my look helps me, which like, I mean, looks aren't important, but they are important. If I feel good about how I look and how the world sees me, I feel better about who I am. And that was part of the transitioning process, is I now feel like I'm aligned with how the world sees me on the inside. And so the imposter syndrome is somewhat going away, because I can walk into a room and I feel like people will see me. But for so long, I didn't know who I was. So in a way, imposter syndrome is kind of hard to like articulate, because I didn't know who I was. I was an imposter to myself.
It's big. So I was talking about this related topic with someone today, actually, and I blurted out, the fake it till you make it, which is maybe associated with an imposter syndrome aspect. So, and it's like the words that we choose have a big implication on how we think about ourselves. What are things that you think of now that you don't feel that, because the words that you use that you don't feel like you have imposter syndrome because of? Yeah.
And it's going into a room and feeling that people see me for who I am, even though they don't know who I am. That who I am and what I radiate as my personality, you asked initially, like, what do people describe me as? And I feel like when I walk into a room, you're going to be like, oh, that girl is this way, this way, this way, this way. And that's who I am as a person. It's when those align that make imposter syndrome, I think, a little bit lower, right? Like that I'm not faking it anymore, because when you see I have pink and blue hair, right? Like, I'm not going to be this, like, give you a lecture about, like, astrophysics or anything, right? Like, I'm who I am, People often comment, and I have sparkles, like a sparkly personality. Like, I'm embodying in a physical way what I am as a person, and that's deliberate, partly branding. I mean, we're small business owners, entrepreneurs, so there is some branding to it, but it is like a personal branding. It's this personal idea or it's like personification of like who I am, like on the outside and the inside, and they match. So faking it, I mean, I don't like the faking it till you make it, but that is something, going through sobriety, that's something we talked about, is like, you don't have to figure out all the answers. Get through today. If you're in a situation that's uncomfortable, fake it until you get out. And then confidence builds, right? Like, faking it is something we do to get through this moment. But then the next moment, we should be better because we got through this past moment,
Yeah. Did you find any delay I now feel my truer self, truest self perhaps, but then the outside world doesn't recognize that? Did you find any delay in when you felt like you were yourself, but then the outside world didn't recognize your version of your truest self, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I would say that I personally saw who I was first, and I think some of that is just the physical changes that transitioning does happen. It does take time. But I remember, like even now, if I went back and looked at my phone from pictures for a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh no, I look way better now. But back then, I thought I looked great, and like I still looked great, but I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'm doing so well. Like, I'm doing my makeup well. I'm doing all these things. But now it's like I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy with where I am now. But for me, like I said, it was me ahead of the world. I had this envision, and we do this, right? We think the world sees us a certain way. Unfortunately, we're often thinking it's negative, right? We're thinking the world sees us negatively. And in a way, I was leading with positivity at that point. Like, I was like, look at me. I'm so pretty. I'm so all this stuff. And then I look back and I'm like, I would say the same thing about me now, and less so than then, but it was all I knew. But yeah, the world, like, again, we think, and I was really concerned often with how people, like, I wonder what they thought of me. I wonder if they know I'm trans. I wonder if they think this, or wonder if they think that. And I remember being in my head often, especially going to new places. And so it was like, I was always really happy. Every step of the way, I was really happy with what I was doing, thinking this was the best thing ever. And it's been really joyful because I always like, this is the best thing ever. This is the best thing ever. And it's always a new best thing ever.
Yeah, it's almost like the opposite of, it's like when like the desires, when you get to the mountaintop of one desire, you've achieved your goal, and it's like this emptiness that comes from like, oh, I've run a marathon, and you were like working months towards it, and then now what?
Mm-hmm.
Or like you got the promotion, and then now what?
Right.
But then it's like the other way now, is like I felt so happy then, and then it's like, and then looking back a year later, it's like, oh, I feel like somehow even more happier now. And then like it's just a progressive, growth trajectory instead of these like desires or like things that bring us down. It's like things that push us forward.
And that was, I had a conversation just the other day about authenticity, and the sort of my response, or what I thought authenticity was kind of how you described it there. And I said, well, it's the easy thing, right? Like, what is it, like, easy thing to be, like, and like, oh, I'm happy with who I am. Let me do this. Let me embrace this. Let me, like, I love my positivity, so I just like lead with it everywhere I go. And then it's like, well, the next thing is still like, okay, now this is the cool thing. Like, this is the neat thing about me. Let me embrace it and cherish it and keep moving forward. But I don't think there has to be like truly like an end goal necessarily, other than, I mean, it's a journey. Like, life is like, one of the things in my book I talk about is like getting away from the rat race of corporate like structure and high, bigger house and all these other things, because then what, right? When you get there, you're just going to the next thing. Enjoy the time, right? Enjoy these things, like this, coworkers that you have, you might think are the best coworkers ever. Enjoy the time that you have them, even if you are wanting a promotion,
Yeah. It's, so how did writing, so you also have like, so there's the writing aspect of what you do, as well as like speaking as well. How did writing and speaking play a part in the process of feeling enthusiastic about yourself and wanting to share that?
That's a great question. So what's interesting is I actually have a degree in public speaking, a bachelor's. So this would have been, oh my gosh, 2005 when I got this degree. So nearly 20 years ago. And I don't know why I didn't, but it makes sense now. Like, it was in there. But I think it's first of all, I really love this impact that I'm having on the world. Like, it's addicting to use a term that was negative in the past. It's addicting to spread positivity. And people, I mean, the message that I convey, people resonate with. And the way I write and articulate, people resonate with. So I almost like backed into this like career of like writing and speaking because I wanted to make an impact. I talked about sitting outside the Panera in July 2022, and I'm like, what is the impact I can make? And then I'm like, how can I make this a job? And that was like the order of operations. Instead of being like, oh, I want to be a speaker, what should I speak about? It was like, what is the impact I want in the world? And how do I write it and speak it into existence? And it's something I love to do. I just love being in front of people. I love cameras. I love it's fun. I don't know. It's fun. It's like truly just a fun thing for me to do.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause my brother asked, we had like a family meeting this past Sunday, and one of the questions that he asked all of us, but specifically me, was like when you wake up, what do you feel the most excited to do? Right? or what do you feel the most enthusiastic to do, or how you want to show up in the world, who you want to be. And so, like, yeah, for me, like, writing is also, one of my main avenues of, like, this self-discovery of feeling enthusiastic about something. Mainly myself.
I mean, if my book's Enthusiastically Me, like, you can own it.
Yeah. So, one thing you mentioned there, I don't know if the audience picked up on it, but the word addiction. What was that process of, like, the changing? It had a certain connotation and experiences in the past with addiction, and now you used addiction in a more, like, something that you're addicted to, happiness, enthusiasm, whatever it is. How would you describe that process of shifting the meaning and connotation of addiction from that past to what it is now?
Yeah, and we are sitting in Antioch Park, and I mentioned that because this was a place of negativity for me. For a whole year, I didn't come back here because the chapter 1 was set here, and then I came back a year later. And in my book, I meet Hazel, or he meets Hazel, but it's important to me to, like, write a history, right? Like, yes, I was in detox, and I write about it in my book, but it also gave me life. It gave me life, this life. And I don't want to discredit everything I've been through. Some people will read this and be like, that was really hard. How did you get through it? And it's like, well, I did. I don't, like, how did I get through it? Because I wanted to survive, and I even talk about the questioning of, like, what caused me to survive that day. But the taking over something negative is something I put a lot of attention and energy in. And again, I'm at this park. I come here all the time to then make it a positive thing. When I actually finished writing this book, I thought, like, I was had a medical procedure. It was potentially going to be delayed. And I decided, instead of stewing about it, I would then put in my energy, and I worked really hard that weekend. It turns out everything was fine that Monday, but that weekend I finished the first draft because I wanted to put the energy towards something. And it's, again, just like rewriting the history. Like, I am where I am now and I'm happy with where I am now. Everything that came up to here has contributed to where I am. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So my substance abuse, my addiction, my mental health issues, everything that happened puts me here today. So I should be thankful for it. And then by rewriting the history, using the term addicting to say I'm addicted to this impact that I'm making first of all, it's using a word in a context that gives it, like, a different meaning in someone's head. But it's also like, I have control now. I have control over this. I'm putting my energy towards something that's satisfying an addiction that isn't. It's positive. Again, it's that positive, like, I am putting positivity in the world through my addiction of putting positivity in the world.
Yeah, it's a virtuous cycle. It's not like a
Right.
vicious cycle. It's like a virtuous one.
I like that virtuous cycle. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I want to do something that we normally do on the podcast, but normally don't do in conversations, which is taking some time to reflect and integrate. So it's like 30 seconds, 1 minute, whatever feels right, to just kind of chill and soak everything in. And then I want to invite you to ask me a question, because I think we can learn a lot, not just from the answers people give, but also the questions that they ask. So after the break, you can ask me whatever pops into the head, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right, anything that comes to mind,
Yes.
Hazel?
Oh, absolutely. So we talked about how my title was the first thing I came up with my book. You're writing a book. What's the title?
I don't have one right now. So I think, so the first one that I technically wrote a first draft of it last, I guess 2022, like Q4 2022. And the title I came up with at that point for that draft was called Redefining Life. So it's like play on words with like redefining something, but then like the divinity of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so very apt with like what we're talking about, the word addiction. Like how can we redefine our meanings to the words? Well, like what is our relationship to the meaning, to the word itself? Because that gives the meaning to, what we think of it, right? Because I think I fundamentally believe that there necessarily isn't good or bad per se, but I think it's our relationship to it, right? And so, success, for example, we talked about that earlier. It's people may have there's 8 billion connotations of success in the world right now, but there's only one in the dictionary. But like, is that the success definition that I want to follow, right? Maybe some aspects of it yes, some aspects of it no, but I want to define it for myself. And so that was kind of the impetus of that, and like the concept of that draft was here are all these words that I've started to redefine for myself, like success, happiness, wisdom, like whatever it is. And that's like, well, then the process of that, like how do you actually get to these root beliefs, change them, or shift them in some way that serves you, if that's something that we want. And then how do we live in that world where our relationship to the word is something that serves us. So that was the fundamental, I guess the premise of that book, and the title was Redefining Life. I don't know if I'll stick with it, because I've tended to go for clever over clear, which doesn't necessarily work in the marketing world as much. It makes sense in my head, but when I describe it, it makes sense after a minute, but like doesn't make sense after a second. So I'm still playing around with it. I think I've accepted that I'll probably, usually the answer for me lies after I've done a lot of work. So I'll probably write the draft, which I'm writing right now, and then I'll probably read it and be like, oh, there's a sentence in there, there's a phrase in there, there's a word in there that resonates. And then I'll probably like have that as the, the title, or maybe some of the chapters, whatever it is. So my thought process is, let me just focus on writing it, and then the answer of the title will naturally emerge. And that's kind of how my coaching business actually kind of, right now, this iteration of it has kind of come along, because in the past, a couple years ago when I incorporated it, it was called TLDR of Life LLC, which, is clever, but it's not clear. So like, then I have to explain it, right? So, but then after, it's like, all right, like I want to have something that when I say, like, people understand what it means, and like I have clarity, and I'm enthusiastic about the name myself, right? I wanted something like that. And I didn't necessarily put pressure on myself to do that, but it was like, I know it'll come, and I just, once it's there, like, I know it'll feel right. And you talked about the word resonance earlier, like enthusiastically resonated with you, right? And so eventually I was just, writing, thinking, and the word easy came to mind. So then I was like, because I use it a lot just naturally, I was like, oh, this is easy. Even when things may seem like they're hard, I always try to remind myself that, like, this is easy, like I can do this. Yes, there's the aspect of like, there are hard things out there and we can do hard things. Another way to look at it, if that doesn't resonate with people, is like, this is easy, like I can run up this hill right now, I can run a marathon, I can start a business. I can leave my job. This is easy. There's a solution. I just have to find it. And so like playing life on easy mode is kind of my tagline, but like easy mode coaching now is the name of my business, and like I resonate with that. It feels natural, feels easy to say, and like people kind of hopefully can get what I'm trying to put out there with that. So long-winded way of saying that I don't have a working title right now for the book, but hopefully when this next draft is done, it'll get there.
Like, yes. No, that's great, because I was talking to someone earlier today about, she was like overcomplicating something, and I'm like, okay, explain it to me, and she just did it, and I'm like, do that again, like just keep doing that. Like people like easy is often the best way, right? Like, and I like that, or easy plus. You said it's just your natural way to like. That's great because that's who you are.
Yeah. So I guess talk to me a little bit about the branding business side of things as well. Like the process that you mentioned with like the person that you were working with of like trying to get everything out of their head and like, oh well, it's right. The answer's right there. Like do that again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And some of it goes with the enthusiastically me. I feel like I'm a walking brand, and I feel like branding isn't as hard as people make it or want it to be, as long as you know who you are and what you're going towards. And like that's where I'm working with this client. Is she just is like, you said that every time, and I'm like, I know I say that every time because you're not listening to me, but it's not never. It doesn't seem like it's as hard as it should be when you know who you are and where you're going, and something with just part of this fell out of my Enthusiastically Me idea. And when I did the cover photo, I was like, okay, once I do this, my hair's staying this way forever. And again, it's this like, but I love it. I love my hair. I love the attention I get. I love all of it because it's me. And so doing the, not overcomplicating things, but just being this like natural, I am doing what I want to do. This authenticity and being the easy way, the thing that you just do naturally, and then accentuating it in the way that makes sense, the enthusiastic authenticity. Again, that's sort of my next step, my next idea. The thing that my Enthusiastically Me is my story of discovering a life I'm enthusiastic to live. Enthusiastic authenticity is what I hope others can have, what I can instill in others, and being who you are in every way and showing up, Yeah. Like people comment about my clothes a lot, and it's like, I love that. I own it. I wear it literally and figuratively, and it's just it's so, again, it's fun. I love it. I love picking out an outfit. I love talking about these things, but that's inevitably I'm going to post something on social media, and most of the comments will be about what I look like. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah. And so like how would you say so if people watching, listening may not feel as enthusiastic about where they are right now, but are feeling inspired by the message that you're sharing and want to read the book, have read the book, whatever the situation, what are some things that you would recommend? Like, oh, this is like, start here. Start feeling a little bit more enthusiastic. Maybe not like 100% enthusiastic, right. But if you're at 20%, let's get to 21.
Right. I mean, I would say like what feels good? Like what is the thing that like inspires you? Or, we talk about a job that doesn't feel like work, and I don't want it to be in that idea of work. I feel like I'm doing my work with it, but it's really fun to me. But it's just like, what is a hobby? What's something you can spend your time that's rewarding, and then going with it and doing it every possible way you can. And it's not necessarily like every waking hour, but is writing an enjoyable thing for somebody? If that's an enjoyable thing, figure out how to put 30 minutes in your week, and then 30 minutes in your day, and and then discover and embrace what falls out of that. If it is a short story, or if it is just I'm starting a book, or donating your time, donating your effort, spending time. I'm a big advocate towards in support of the trans community, and I really value that, and I love doing it. I love meeting people. I love seeing the people. I focus when I'm tired or I'm like, do I want to do this? I think about the children who come up to me and say, hey, I know you. Like I don't know who they are, but they've seen me around, and I'm like, that feeling is just incredible, and not that like everyone's going to have that, but there's something in your life. Like find the thing that gives you that feeling and do it as much as you can. Like I said, it's at knitting. Like some people knit, the gloves for, people who are houseless and things. Just what is it? Like what is the thing that you want to do? And stop focusing on career. Stop focusing on possessions and competing with the neighbor because they have a bigger car, so I need a bigger car. What is the thing that brings you joy?
Yeah, I've recently been more and more thinking about like play as an aspect of our life, and how we, with all these structures that we've kind of touched on, we kind of lose that natural tendency for us to play. Like playing in the park. There's a playground over there.
Well, and sometimes I think people get jealous of when someone's having fun, and I think our idea is sometimes that we have to like not maybe ridicule or bring that person down because I can't do it. Oftentimes I feel that people don't like who I am because I just like love who I am, and they don't have it. So it's easier to bring me down, or try to bring me down. They're not going to, but try to bring me down than to elevate themselves, because they're outward focused instead of inward focused. And being inward focused and saying, how am I happy today, means that, if Sai goes and runs and jumps in the thing, I'm just like laughing and enjoying it because you're having fun, right? As opposed to being like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, Like if someone's having fun, like we should enjoy the fun. We should enjoy celebrate everybody. And like I said, if you want to go jump in the water, I will just like cheer you on and laugh at you. like do what you want to do, because it's it's going to bring me joy, or I'm going to find the joy in it. And then tell you it's cold. But yeah, it's this, we can all enjoy like the same thing. I think energy, the joy, enthusiasm is, contagious. It can be contagious. And so finding it and bringing it to you, owning it, carrying it forward. One thing I was going to do in a social media campaign is like, okay, I get a lot of negativity on the social media, but I'm like, if everyone who sees it and doesn't like it, it's like, don't come and defend me. I'm fine. Like I have enough joy for me. Go and spread joy. Like for every negative comment you see about me, go tell 2 people good things. Because this idea of building on joy, building on like excitement, enthusiasm, that like if I walk into a room and I say, hey, you look really nice today. This is like so good to see you. And it's because of like negativity that started it, like then the world becomes positive. And just like enjoy it. Like, just like is having fun. Like let's have fun.
I love that. It's like the ratio of of positivity and negativity being 2 to 1 there.
Right.
It's like, for every hate comment, for every negative one,
we get
spread
2.
joy. Yeah.
Right. And then for every one you get, spread 2 more. And I know this is simplistic, and I'm just like, the world's not going to we're not going to solve all the world's problems, but if we're stopping negativity and turning around and spreading positivity, inevitably it's a better place for everybody.
Yeah, it's like focusing on our own doorstep and our own home, or
right.
people that we are our community, instead of trying to help the world. Or I think that's something I've like accepted and thought about, of like, maybe I had this illusion that I was like, oh, I want to be the greatest this or greatest that, or like best this, best that. And I'm like, actually, let's just like enjoy the present, and like try. If you want to help the world, you can't do that if you don't help the person right next to you.
Right.
So, and like let's just focus on the community that I'm in right now. You know, like, I guess ties back to like what I'm grateful for.
Right.
Like I said, it's like yeah, sure, I have friends in Charlotte and Atlanta, like Texas, and you know here from when I grew up here. But it's like helping someone in like when you're in close proximity to them, like physically, like in the same city, same neighborhood. There's a different sort of connection that happens where you can spread this positivity, spread enthusiasm, like very naturally.
Right. One of my favorite people in the entire world is Maya Angelou. And there's a quote, and I think it's hers, but it says, people don't remember what you do, they remember how you make them feel. And that just like strikes me so like to the core of who I am, particularly when people come back to me and say, oh, this thing that you put out there, or just seeing you makes me happy. It's like, that's so invaluable to me. Like it's what, like, I wish I could like just like, live on it, right? Because that's so meaningful to me is when someone comes to me and says, you made me happy, you made me smile. And it's like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this. And again, we'll have streets named after people who did things, but we don't even remember what they did. But the little things, or even big things, or the meaningful things, the things like you said, next to you, you know, like I'll remember we talked about how we met. And it's like, well, I'm going to remember that. Like you're the one of the people that I've taken from that networking group, and we're here today, right? And there's a lot of joy that we should celebrate with that.
Yeah, 100%. So going forward, what are you working on? What are you wrestling with? What are you enthusiastic to be sharing going forward?
Well, I'm stacking up some speaking engagements. I have a couple next week, and just doing that on a small scale, but writing a book was one of the most fun things I've ever done. So I've already started my next one. I'm going to kind of write it in tandem with my speaking, because I'm going to see kind of what works and what resonates. And so the Enthusiastic Authenticity is the working title of the next book. I've started brainstorming, jotting things down, and my goal would be another year to do that. So I wrote this in about 14 months, so that would put me about summer of next year, at which point I'll probably start writing another book, memoir style, so I might go back and forth. But this enthusiastic authenticity is the concept I want to bring to the world, and that'll be through the speaking that I do and a book.
Love that. Yeah, because it's tying like what you're doing in book format with what you're doing, like speaking and like helping people directly with like your business, and they're all like part of one. What you said earlier about like what do you find passionate and what do you want to do, and then like do it in as many ways as possible. It's like book is one, like the working with clients, speaking, like all these different ways of sharing the message of enthusiasm. Yeah.
Yes, it's fun. Like I have this thing, and what's so crazy is like it just happened. You know, I mean, you could talk about how your easy idea, but it was just sitting at a table on a hot July afternoon, just thinking about what I could do, and like, and I told a few friends. They're like, "Oh, I like that." And it's like now it's like my life, and it started as this just like seed of a idea, and it's now like everything that I am.
Yeah. It's like the making mountains out of molehills and molehills out of mountains,
right?
But then like in a good way,
right?
It's like
right.
the smallest thing is like now you're like life,
right?
It's like life message. Awesome. As we wrap up here, is there anything that I haven't asked or that we haven't talked about that you want to share with me, with anyone listening?
Yeah, I mean, when what I really appreciate about you and me, and when we when we were at the networking events, I mean, we look different than most of the people there. It's very easy and natural for me to get out of my comfort zone and just meet anybody. Like, I just love meeting everybody. But we never know, like, would I have believed, on April 4th we would be recording a podcast for you when I met you? No, like, we never know what's going to happen. Never know, not that it was a big risk to talk to you during a network event by any stretch, but, I challenge everybody to kind of push yourself. Like, you don't know what world is out there when you just do something you're maybe slightly uncomfortable. And then if you do it and it's successful, like, remember that the next time. I mean, we just, I think a lot of people just sit and get stuck in their ways when, there's such a wonderful world out here with so many different people. And, challenge everybody, challenge yourself to do something new, do something different.
Love that, Hazel. Well, I appreciate this conversation and spending time here. If you haven't already, buy Hazel's book, Enthusiastically Me. Where can people get it?
On Amazon. Search my name, Hazel Krebs, probably the easiest way to get it.
Perfect. I'll put a link in the description for this as well.
Yeah, thank you.
But obviously, we chose Antioch Park for a reason. And it's, I'm very glad that we were able to record it here with a lot of significance.
Mm-hmm.
So appreciate everyone listening and watching to another episode of Size Eyes Podcast and the Casually Profound series. This was with Hazel Krebs, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.